Okay, so I want you to picture something, just for a second.
Mm-hmm.
You're standing on a street corner in Austin, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
It's today, January 26, 2026.
Right now.
You look to your left, and this silver wedge-shaped vehicle just glides by. It's completely silent.
And you look inside.
And there's no steering wheel, no pedals, just a passenger, scrolling on their phone, completely ignoring the road.
Which would have been absolutely terrifying just a few years ago.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then you look to your right, and you see a news ticker on a billboard. And it's scrolling a headline about thousands of humanoid robots.
Androids, basically.
Rolling off an assembly line, ready to go fold laundry or, I don't know, build houses.
If you had told someone back in, say, 2003 that this would be the reality, they would have laughed you out of the room.
Oh, for sure.
They'd have called it bad science fiction.
Absolutely. But for the company we are deep diving into today, this isn't sci-fi. This is just the first quarter of 2026.
We're talking about Tesla.
We are, of course, talking about the Tesla Odyssey.
The company that didn't just electrify the car, they sort of broke the entire automotive industry and then rebuilt it in their own image.
And that is exactly why we're doing this. We've got a massive stack of notes here, mostly from the Innovation Frontier, which chronicles this whole journey. But our mission, it isn't just to list car models.
Right. Anyone can go to Wikipedia for that.
But we want to find the pattern.
Yeah. We're here to uncover the mechanism. How does a startup go from being weeks away from total bankruptcy, I mean, literally running on fumes, to forcing the biggest manufacturing pivot in history?
And maybe more importantly, now that they've sort of conquered the road, where are they going next? Because looking at these notes on 2026, car company just feels like the wrong label entirely.
It's woefully inadequate. We're looking at an AI and robotics company now, but to understand the robot, you have to understand the Roadster.
So let's rewind. Take us back to that initial spark. Because the popular narrative is that Elon Musk started Tesla. But according to the records, that isn't true.
No, it's not. Not at all. It's July 2003. You're in Silicon Valley.
Okay.
And you have two engineers, Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning. And they aren't just, environmentalists trying to save the polar bears. They're frustrated engineers.
Frustrated by what?
By General Motors. They had just watched GM recall and physically crush its EV1 electric cars.
Oh, right.
The documentary.
Exactly. It was a PR disaster. But for them, it was a light bulb moment. They looked at the EV1 and realized GM failed because they built a compromise. It was a glorified golf cart.
They made it boring. They made it feel like a penalty box.
Exactly. So Eberhard and Tarpenning had this different thesis. They realized that lithium-ion batteries, the same tech that was in laptops, had gotten just good enough to power a high-performance vehicle. They didn't want an eco-box. They wanted to build a Ferrari that just happened to be electric.
Which is a huge pivot in thinking. You don't sell the green aspect, you sell the speed.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that's where Elon Musk enters the frame in February 2004. He wasn't the founder, but he was the first major investor.
He put in $7.5 million of his own money from the PayPal buyout and became chairman.
And from what I'm reading here, he wasn't exactly a silent partner.
Far from it. I mean, he immediately instilled a culture of, well, let's call it aggressive optimism. He wanted a carbon fiber body. He wanted the chassis of a Lotus Elise. He wanted specs that defied physics.
He basically told the engineers to ignore the constraints.
Pretty much. He just said, make it happen.
And that leads us to the first product, the Roadster. On paper, this thing was a beast. 0 to 60 in 4 seconds.
It was faster than a Porsche 911 from that era. When they showed the prototype in 2006, people went insane.
Right.
Celebrities were writing $100,000 checks just to get on the list. It proved the concept was desirable.
But this is where the deep dive gets really interesting. Because a prototype is one thing. Mass production is a completely different beast. And looking at the timeline for 2008, this story almost ended right there.
2008 was the year everything broke. The economy collapsed, first of all. But inside Tesla, the production hell was literal. The transmissions on the Roadster couldn't handle the torque of the motor. They were just tearing themselves apart.
And the batteries.
Overheating. And the costs were
high.
Completely out of control. It was costing them way more to build the car than they were selling it for. You just can't do that for long. They were bleeding cash.
So Eberhard is out. Musk steps in as CEO. And this is the part that always blows my mind. Musk was personally bankrupting himself to keep the lights on.
He was all in. He put in $40 million of his own cash, mortgaged his homes. There's a story in the notes about him sleeping on the factory floor, not for show, but because they needed to solve problems now.
How close were they to the edge?
Days. maybe weeks.
Yeah.
In December 2008, they closed a financing round on Christmas Eve, just hours before they would have missed payroll.
That is razor thin.
It shaped the company's DNA, that high-risk tolerance, that willingness to just bet the farm. It started right there. They did eventually get a $465 million loan from the Department of Energy in 2009, which saved them, but...
Yeah, but they had to execute perfectly after that.
Perfectly.
Okay, so they survived. They sell about, 2,450 Roadsters? But the Roadster was never the end game, was it?
No. And this is the key insight for you, the listener. Tesla wasn't just winning it. Musk published his Master Plan Part 1 all the way back in 2006. It was a 4-step algorithm.
Laid out for us.
Step 1, build a low-volume, expensive car. That's the Roadster.
Sure.
Step 2, use that money to build a medium-volume, less expensive car. That became the Model S.
Right.
Step 3, use that money to create a high-volume, affordable car, and that's the Model 3.
And step 4 was solar power.
Provide solar power. It
Well,
sounds so logical now.
It does in hindsight.
Yeah.
But at the time, going from a niche sports car to a luxury sedan like the Model S, that seems like a huge leap.
It was massive. When the Model S launched in 2012, it wasn't just good for an electric car. It was just a great car, period.
Motor Trend Car of the Year.
Safest car ever tested. And it had that huge 17-inch touchscreen that controlled everything.
Which everyone mocked at first.
And now every car has one.
And the range.
Yeah.
265 miles. That was the moment range anxiety started to fade for the average buyer.
Right. But to do that, they had to do something the rest of the industry thought was suicidal. Vertical integration.
Okay, so explain that term for those of us not in business school. Why does it matter if they build their own seats or whatever?
Sure. So most car companies are disassemblers. They buy the seats from one supplier, the engine from another, the brakes from another, and they just bolt it all together.
Got it.
Tesla decided to build the machine that builds the machine. They built the Gigafactory in Nevada for their own batteries. They wrote their own software.
So they control their own destiny. If a supplier failed, it didn't matter because they were the supplier.
Exactly. And that worked beautifully until the Model 3.
Ah, yes. 2017, the second production hell. This was supposed to be the mass market car, the iPhone moment for EVs.
And it almost killed them again. Musk admitted they tried to automate way too much. They had robots trying to install, fluffy sound insulation, messy cables.
And robots are bad at fluff.
Robots are very bad at fluff. Humans are good at fluff.
I love the detail in the notes about the tent. It sounds like a joke.
It's iconic. So the high-tech assembly line was totally jammed. In an act of desperation, they built a massive tent in the factory parking lot and just started building cars by hand.
That sounds like something a startup would do, not a major automaker. Like, imagine Ford building F-150s in a tent.
But it worked. They hit profitability in 2018. The Model 3 became the best-selling premium car in the world. Then the Model Y came in 2020 and just obliterated the sales charts.
And that gets us to the global scale we saw leading into 2024. Factories in Shanghai, Berlin, Texas. 1.8 million cars a year. They forced Ford and VW to just scramble to catch up.
They won the EV war. But that brings us to the now, because if you bought Tesla stock in 2024 thinking it was just a car company, you were already missing the bigger picture.
Let's pivot to this era, from 2024 to today, 2026, because the whole narrative shifted from electric transport to autonomy.
It did. And we have to talk about the Cybertruck just briefly.
The stainless steel triangle.
People hated it. Then they loved it. Then they hated it again. But despite all that, despite the recalls, it was the best-selling electric truck of 2024.
It proved they could break all the design rules and still sell.
Exactly. But the real game changer is the software. We're seeing these cybercabs in Austin now, unsupervised.
This is the Master Plan Part 2 coming to life. The big pivot was that October 2024 robotaxi event. You showed a car for $30,000 with no steering wheel.
Right.
But we've been promised full self-driving for like a decade. Every year was coming next year. What changed technically between 2024 and 2026 to make it actually work?
The whole architecture of the AI changed. Back in the day, FSD was heuristic. That means programmers wrote code like, if red light, then stop.
Okay.
If stop sign, wait 3 seconds. It's very rigid.
You can't code for every possible weird scenario on a road, like a kid dropping a ball or a construction worker waving you through a red light.
Exactly. So with version 12, back in 2024, they switched to end-to-end neural nets.
Which means?
So imagine showing a teenager millions of hours of video of good driving. You don't tell them the rules, they just watch and learn. The car learns by imitation, not by rule following.
So it developed a kind of digital intuition.
In a sense, yes. And because Tesla had millions of cars on the road sending back video data, their teenager had more practice than any human could get in a billion lifetimes. By version 14 in late 2025, the data set was so massive that the safety stats just shate. They surpass human drivers.
Which is why regulators in Austin finally gave the green light for the unsupervised fleet.
That's the key. It's not just tech, it's trust. They had to prove, mathematically, that the computer crashed less often than a person.
But if self-driving taxis aren't enough disruption for you, we have to talk about Optimus, the robot.
This is the part that keeps economists up at night.
I remember the first reveal a few years back. It was just a guy in a spandex suit dancing. Everyone thought it was a joke.
It was a recruitment stunt. But the engineering team wasn't joking. They took the same philosophy from the cars, the batteries, the actuators, the vision software, and put it all into a humanoid form.
The pace of this is what's kind of scary. We went from spandex guy to Gen 3 production models in, 3 years?
The notes say they produced 5,000 units in 2025. But for this year, 2026, the target is 100,000 units.
And the price point is supposed to be under $20,000.
Think about that. A Honda Civic costs more than that. So if you can buy a laborer that works 20 hours a day, never gets sick, never joins a union for the price of a used car.
That fundamentally breaks the labor market.
It decouples economic output from population. You don't need more people to grow the economy. You just need more robots.
It also connects back to the energy piece, right? Because all these robots and cars need juice.
The quiet giant. We all focus on the flashy robots, but the energy division, specifically the megapacks, is just printing money. In 2025, they deployed 43.5 gigawatt hours of storage.
These are the massive batteries that stabilize the grid.
And it's an arbitrage machine. You buy electricity when it's cheap and sunny, you sell it when it's dark and expensive. That business grew 84% year over year.
Okay, so we've painted a pretty rosy picture of technological triumph, but we have to address the elephant in the room, the culture. The source material uses the word hardcore.
It's not a cozy place to work. It's intense. Turnover is high.
Yeah.
And we can't ignore the controversies surrounding Elon Musk himself.
The tweets, the politics.
The X era. Yeah, his public persona became incredibly polarizing. There's data showing it alienated a big chunk of the liberal customer base that originally bought the Model S to save the planet.
And the SACE investigations, the recalls, the fights with unions in Scandinavia.
It has been a constant battle. But here's the cold, hard business reality. Despite all the noise, despite the cancellation attempts, the sales kept going up.
Why do you think that is?
Because at the end of the day, the product's value proposition was just too strong. Even if you didn't like the CEO, the car was simply the best value for the money. And now, if you want a humanoid robot or a robotaxi, well, there's really only one game in town.
So, looking at the big picture here in 2026, what's the so what for the listener? What does this all mean?
The so what is that we're watching a fundamental shift in value. For 100 years, the auto industry was about hardware, manufacturing. Tesla turned it into a software and energy game.
The $10 trillion opportunity that's mentioned in the notes.
Trillion with a T. And the math goes like this. If you solve autonomy with FSD, you aren't selling a car once for $40,000. You're selling a subscription. You're taking a cut of every mile driven as a taxi. That is high-margin recurring revenue.
Like a utility company.
Exactly. Plus the labor market. If Optimus works at scale, the total addressable market is right.
Well, it's the entire global economy of physical labor.
That is heavy to think about. It's a long way from two guys in 2003 just wanting a car that didn't look like a golf cart.
It's a story of audacity.
Right.
Audacity incarnate, as the text puts it. They were wrong about timelines constantly. They overpromised, they broke things. But on the big bets, electric, autonomy, energy, they were right.
And they dragged the rest of the world kicking and screaming with them.
Exactly. Even if Tesla went bust tomorrow, the world is electric now because of them.
Well, as we wrap up this deep dive into the Tesla Odyssey, I want to leave you with a thought. We talked about Optimus handling dangerous jobs and robotaxis handling the commute. And it sounds great, almost utopian, but if physical labor becomes cheap and abundant, what happens to the value of human work?
That is the question of the century. When the robot costs less than the worker's yearly grocery bill, the whole economy has to change. It's something to chew on. Next time you see that cybercab humming down the street, take a good look. It's not just a car. It's a preview of a very different world. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive.
We'll see you next time.